With me now to discuss is Rob Pinfold, lecturer in international security at King's College London. Nice to see you this morning. So we've all been watching the protests in Iran play out, even with a near total internet blackout. There didn't seem to be any sign of them letting up, but now they seem to have quieted down.
That's right, Lauren. There were obviously protests throughout Iran. The death toll is significant here. We don't know how many people have died. You mentioned several thousand there. There are some estimates up to 10,000 or possibly even more. So even with the lower numbers, this is more Iranians killed in domestic disputes by the regime than any time since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. However, that crackdown seems to have worked in the regime's favor for the time being. That brutal use of force has backed it into a corner. It has alienated the regime from Iranians like never before, but it is enforcing compliance. We have not seen defections by the security forces. We have not seen the opposition rally around one coherent leader that can claim to represent all Iranians. So for the time being, it seems like because of those factors, these protests have abated.
So, as you say, it is quiet for now. Does it seem like Iran could be in the clear from U.S. intervention, or is it likely we'll still see some kind of U.S. response?
Well, Iran and its regime are not in the clear, I would say. It's too early to say that. They have really delegitimized themselves, not just in the eyes of the international community, but also in the eyes of many Iranians. These were different protests to before. Previous protests have been led by opposition groups against regime policies, against authoritarianism and repression. These were economic protests. Iranians really feel like, regardless of their ideology, they simply cannot make ends meet because of the crippling sanctions as a result of the Iranian regime's actions externally. So this is more like a pause before the next inevitable outbreak of protests, but that use of mass violence, those mass killings, has bought the Iranian regime some time. And as a result, it's difficult to see how a US strike would tilt the balance. Iran is not Venezuela. It does not have one leader whom you can simply swoop in and arrest or take out, and then the rest of the structure will follow. Iran has all sorts of different networks, all sorts of different centers of power, not just the clerics, not just the political leaders, not just the Revolutionary Guard. So any US strike would have to be very, very well coordinated and used in a strategic manner if it were to contribute to the fall of the regime, rather than just, for example, creating a domestic rally round the flag effect.
Rob, we know that Trump and Israel's Netanyahu seem to be quite aligned on a possible response. If the U.S. does go ahead and carry out some kind of strike, do you expect Israel to get involved as well?
Well, obviously, nothing is official yet, but what we're hearing is the Israelis actually push the Americans not to strike just yet, which suggests that the Israelis are biding their time and waiting for what they would see as the sweet spot, the time when they can inflict the maximum damage on the Iranian regime. Now, of course, the Israeli target primarily is Iran's nuclear program. So the Trump administration might be thinking differently in terms of, for example, protecting protesters or constraining Iran more broadly. And the other divergence, and it's a critical divergence between the US and Israel, is the US's Gulf partners. Now, many of these Gulf states who are very close to the US, major non-NATO allies, like Bahrain, like Qatar, they do not like the Iranian regime. They fear the Iranian regime, but they know that if there was to be US intervention, the retaliation from Iran would likely be on US bases in the Gulf. So they, for the time being, have been lobbying very, very hard against US military action. And we don't know the ins and outs. You know, diplomacy is a clandestine thing, but it's very, very likely that that might have tipped the US over the balance against intervening in what's going on in Iran today.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. Rob, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is Rob Pinfold, lecturer in international security at King's College London.